Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Table Talk. This morning, I have Pastor Carlo with me.
Hey.
Carlo, you're behind the scenes most of the time. And so you haven't done a table talk yet, and a lot of times people don't even see you on a Sunday morning because you're running all the technology. And I honestly don't know where we'd be if you weren't running the technology. So let me first say thank you for all your hard work and
No
research
problem.
that you've done. But because you get to sit behind the scenes, I think sometimes you hear the message differently. You're looking at it differently. So on Sunday we started Advent and we started talking about hope. And so just a quick question is a lot of times that's our first discussion question is like what stood out to you on Sunday?
Yeah, this I think from my memory, which is bad. I don't. I think this is the first sermon series that I've listened to that was like with the tradition of Advent. So it was actually new for me, which kind of sounds ironic because maybe there's a lot of people in the church here or listening online that have been they've sat in a series for Advent before, and I understand the principle of it and the tradition of it, and read about it, but I haven't like sat through a teaching or a sermon or preaching. So it was new to me, which actually just caught my ear because it was refreshing. And I had talked to you on the way home late Sunday night after after the parade, and it was
Yes.
just saying that just your message on hope was just so good that it wasn't. It didn't feel flaky. It first for myself or lots of other people during the Christmas season that need to understand and grasp the truth of hope in a real way. It didn't seem that it was you were just telling me to like keep my head up and like something good's gonna happen. You just wait for it. It was realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots that you talked about. I wrote down some notes. Notes are good. Trusty piece of paper. I'm a little old school for being the tech guy. I always write notes on paper. You talked about God's promises. I think was one of your first points.
Yeah.
And when I think of promises, I think of what's to come and what's going to happen in the future. And the first word that kind of came to mind was eternity. That God has a promise for your future. That we actually have an eternal promise that we're waiting for. That's more than what we're experiencing right now on this earth. So God knows the future. He knows our future plans, and that was reassuring for me and the things that I've been walking through the last couple of years of that this isn't the end. Like this struggle, this earth, this kind of life that we're living right now, whatever I'm going through, whatever you're going through, like this isn't the end. That there's actually something better coming. So
That's so important, I think, is to not get overwhelmed with the moment. Moments are moments, but eternity is forever.
yeah,
And I remember years ago, I saw this video of Francis Chan. He did this great illustration of this long rope. And he said, so many of us concentrate on this little piece. He had a tape with like electrical tape, and it's this black piece about this long on the rope. And he said, this is our life here on earth.
yeah,
And we concentrate so much on this part. And this rope went on for distance. And he was
yeah.
like,
I
use
saw
your
that.
imagination. It went
Yeah,
forever, right? But even if you had 100-foot rope, and that was eternity, and I know we don't understand what eternity is, but the idea of this 100-foot rope, and we concentrate on about 2 inches of it,
yeah,
and the effort we put in and all that to figure out and forget that this effort should really have this all in consideration. I think that's where hope comes in, this eternal hope,
yeah.
that it's more than the moment we're in.
Right.
Anything else stand out to you?
You're just the best preacher. He's just the best preacher, isn't he? Are you thankful for your pastor? I'm getting
not,
brownie points
yeah,
right now.
I appreciate that. Here's the extra money.
It was good. You talked about a character and the importance
Yeah.
of character in the theme and idea of hope. And I don't remember the scripture off the top of my head, but basically paraphrasing, it went that trials produce character, and character produces hope. And that's just exactly what I wrote down. Character actually prevails, and something that I'm continuously learning in my life every day is that character will always see through every single moment. Even when the world around you doesn't see it, God sees it. He sees your character. And dare I say, that might be one of the most important things that God is looking for, is who you actually are on the inside and how it reflects your faith in your life and everything you do, your speech, your actions on the outside. Character is one of the most important things, I think. And it doesn't just end there. It's not that just trials, your hard times produces character. It's not like God's just trying to make you tough,
Right.
so you can just like get through a hard time. But character actually leads to hope, because when God produces something good in your life, good fruit in your life, good character in your life, you'll actually be able to work through trials. You'll actually be able to go, okay, I've been in this season before. Like, how many times have we've been in this circle or this loop of like, okay, this sucks. It's never going to get better, but you've already gone through something similar like that maybe a couple of years ago, and you've forgotten what God did then.
Yeah.
God wants to remind you again that what He did before, He can do again.
Absolutely.
And the same character that He was producing and molding in you then, He's going to do it even more. And so the next trial that comes up, because they're not going away. It's not, God's promises is not that, like, when we follow Him, put our trust in Him, that everything is just rainbows and daisies.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Like,
Absolutely.
I would love the pot of gold at the end, but it might not actually work out that way.
It's
and
true.
yeah, I think character, what you talked about, when we go through trials, that actually leads to character, and character leads to hope, and we'll be able to see through it every time that we have a new trial in our day.
I think one of the things I want to clarify for everybody is we teach this and we talk about it. I feel sometimes maybe people go, well, if I was a pastor, I would have this confidence. If I was a pastor, my life would be better. But like the trials that we go through, the struggles that we go through, as I'm teaching on hope, I'm teaching myself. And in the last few weeks, I have some prayer partners that I send emails out to or text messages out to weekly, and they pray for me. And I'm part of a mentorship group and all this kind of stuff. And with these two groups, I've received text messages or emails of encouragement in the last couple of weeks. And the verses that they are sending to me is like James 1, 2-4, where it's like, consider it pure joy when you're in struggles and trials, because
I love
it is,
that one.
I know, right? Like you send a text message out saying, hey, can you pray for me? Things are tough. And all of a sudden the encouraging word back is James 1, 2-4. Like, I don't even have to read it. I know what it says. And the first thing that goes through my head is, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And then as you read it and you remind yourself exactly what we just talked about, like through this, we're learning perseverance. Perseverance is going to build us up. It is going to make us strengthen. And I love the way verse 4 ends, because it says that you will be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And that's so important. And then literally, what would have been? It would have been Monday or Tuesday of this week. So just a couple of days. I got another text message from a guy, and he was encouraging me. He felt like God was putting me on his heart, that he was praying for me. And he sent me some verses where it was John 17, verse 15. It says this. And when you hear it at first, you're like, I don't know if that's what I want people praying. But it says this, my prayer is not that you take them out of the world. So it's not that they take, God, I'm not praying that you take Chad out of the world or out of this problem, but that you protect him from the evil one. So in the middle of it, you're still journeying through it. So this word was that God's not going to take me out of a situation, but he's going to equip me and protect me in it. And then in Luke 10, 19-20, it says, I have given you authority to trample on snakes, scorpions, and to overcome the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you.
Are you afraid of snakes too?
I am petrified. And do you want to know the funny thing is, as much as I'm petrified, I found this show. This is such a rabbit trail. I found this show on I think it's the National Geographic, and it's called Swamp People, and they hunt alligators. But there's a new one called Swamp People Serpent Invasion, and they're catching pythons and anacondas. And I'm hooked on this show. Yeah. And so I'm watching this show with my feet up off the floor. I'm petrified, but I can't stop watching. Anyway, and so it says that you trample snakes and scorpions. So this is the verse I kind of hang on to, because no matter how much I'm scared, I'm still good. I still keep my feet off the floor. But nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your name is written in heaven. And so this goes back to what you said, this hope of eternity. So even though I have these promises of like, God's great, God's going to hold me, he's going to protect me, and he's going to protect me through the trials. It doesn't mean I'm out of them. But even in that confidence that he's not going to let me go, he's not going to let me fall, my confidence is more, my joy is more, that my name is written in eternity. And so that's where it's just hanging on to these promises, that even though we're walking through struggles and we're challenges, that God, first off, he has us. He's going to protect us. And two, the ultimate thing that we can hold on to is at the end of this, we're in heaven.
Right.
We're in heaven. If it's okay with you, I'm going to ask you a personal question. And for those who are new to the church, they may not know that this Christmas will be your second Christmas
Yeah.
without your dad.
Yep.
And we're walking through just talking about hope. And so, in this heavy season, how do you find hope? Just dealing with some of that weight. And I realize it's personal.
Yeah, no. I think it's good to talk about. Something that God really enabled me to do, because it's not on my own strength. And as you'll see, I might get a little teary,
Yeah.
but that's actually okay. Because what I've been learning through the grief process is like you don't have to put a finish or an end to being emotional or crying or like remembering my dad and those kinds of things. A couple things about, when you lose somebody close to you, or if someone's in pain, or you're going through this season of grief of some sort, and everybody's story is so different. So I hope that my story encourages you, maybe wherever you're walking through in the Christmas season. And I'm like an uber Christmas fan. Like, I consider myself like almost on par with Elf. Like, I love Christmas. I like Santa, all that kind of stuff. Like, when the parade was going by, I was yelling at kids like, Santa's up there. Like, I was just as excited to get to the front. Never happened, unfortunately. But it also is a heartbreaking season, because every time now when I go home to visit my mom, or when I go to my sisters or something like that, there's always somebody missing. Right? There's always somebody not in their chair, sitting there. And my dad was so funny during Christmas. Like, my family would get this if they end up watching. Like, no matter what you got him, it could have been the best gift in the world. He would always like have this sarcastic laugh, like, "Oh, thanks!" Like, and like, so it was so hard, because one year you would like really try and get it, and you'd feel disappointed because you're like, you're being sarcastic. Can't tell if you like it. And then the next year you'd be like, well, I remember last year I got you this awesome gift, and this year you're like, or you didn't really care. But he did care about it, but he was just being a jokester about it. And so then you don't try as hard, and he has the same reaction. You're like, oh, I just saved a lot of money there. So Christmas brings so many good memories like that, but there's also tough ones, because I don't have any more to share on this earth. But going back to the idea of eternity in heaven and the promise, walking through that week was difficult. My dad was a little bit sick, but nobody knew what was going on at the time. And long story short, I think it was the Wednesday, I got a call from my sister. I was during youth group. I was like right about to preach, and I got this call, and I was like, my sister's calling. That's weird. And I didn't know that my dad was even like sick or not well. And so I got this call, and she's calling, she's crying, Dad's been diagnosed with cancer, you got to come down. And I remember getting in the car, like screaming, yelling, and like, God, give me time to drive. I've never driven that fast. I've driven fast before, but this was like next level fast. So any of our police friends, give me a break. But it was a crazy week. My dad, I had 7 days left from that call with my dad here on earth. And I remember my cousin, who I would say is a believer in God. It might be maybe more in an agnostic view or something like that. But she said something that really changed my heart, because I was mad that week. I was upset. I was frustrated. I didn't understand. I had a lack of faith. Like, it was a difficult week, and being a pastor made it that much harder, because sometimes as a pastor you may feel like this too. You have to feel like you have it all together to help the people that God is put in your life to walk with. Make sure you have it all together so you can help them have it all together, and that just is not the reality most days. But I remember she said, and this is maybe a little weird, but we were in the room and my dad had passed, and the family was there, and when she walked in, we were all crying and hugging and stuff like that. And she said, that's not your dad. And I was like, yeah, it is. Like, this is weird. And she's like, no, like, that doesn't look like your dad. That doesn't, that's not your dad. That's like his shell. Right. Which is kind of like a weird imagery or analogy to do it, but it made me realize that like this human body is a very small piece of who I am. Right. And that, God's promise for me is more than the pain that this body may suffer. Right. And that my dad is no longer in a place of terminal pain, and God gave me a word that He changed terminal pain into eternal glory or into
Wow.
eternal peace.
Yeah.
Because when you hear words like, terminal from a doctor, it feels pretty hopeless.
Yeah.
I remember that they were trying to put him into I think it's called a hospice.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Kind of your final days there, and we got booked in the night before, and within 12 hours he had passed.
Wow.
So it's like even the hope of like, okay, he's going to be like in a nice home, and we can go outside, and that didn't happen. And there was a lot of hopelessness that week, and God did something that I could not muster up the own strength within me to feel myself of that. When my dad had passed on, He used a family member to remind me that, this is just a smidge of time. It's just a little piece of the rope. And this body is just a small part of who I am, but actually I have a soul that's going to last for eternity with God. So yeah, that's I didn't cry. That's good.
Yeah.
Gave myself a pat on the back. Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty. Thank you. It's not an easy conversation to have, but people need hope today. And I think to understand that as much as we talk about the promises of hope, there's days where we struggle with the hope.
Yeah. Can I mention one more
Yeah.
thing too? I've actually had to learn how to live in the unknown.
Yeah.
One of the biggest battles for me, because I'm a problem solver, like I want to figure out the answer, like I'm a risk taker, like I want to get things done. And when I don't know what's going on, I can go with the flow, but
Yeah.
even when I can't go with the flow, that drives me insane. Like it just bursts my bubble. And I've had to learn how to be okay with not knowing the answer.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, with the biggest tragedy that's happened, that's a part of the character that God has produced in me, that, I can live in the unknown and be okay with the answer of why didn't He heal him like I wanted Him to heal him.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, and it's still a process. It's not like it just came overnight. But I've actually found hope, like a lot of hope, in going, okay, I don't need to know the answer to everything.
Yeah. I remember we went through a tough time with a miscarriage, and we just heard a message. Chuck Price was preaching, and he said, "You can always ask why."
Is that the boxer guy? UFC guy?
No.
Oh.
No, Chuck Price would be...
I'm thinking Chuck Liddell. I was like, is
Yeah.
he Christian? Did he
No,
preach?
not Chuck Liddell, Chuck Price. And so he spoke, and he was talking about the presence of God. And he tells his testimony, and he says that you can always ask God why, but you may not get the answer, or you may not like the answer. But he said you can always ask God for His presence, and you will always love His presence.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like such a cliche answer, but it is a true answer.
So true. Yeah.
And it's not an easy one, but it is a true one. And so thanks for being so honest today. And our prayer is that you will find in this time a season of hope. And it's okay to struggle with that.
Yeah.
But God is our ultimate hope. And if we put our faith in Him, He will lift it up. And so if you're feeling discouraged today, just want to encourage you, spend some time praying, spend some time putting some worship music on, and just wait on the Lord. Give Him some extra time to help our hearts in a season looking for hope. So God bless you. Thank you for joining us today for Table Talk.
Peace.